In this video, I'm going to show you some of my favorite tips and tricks on how to park your car and get it ready for winter storage. Before I move forward, I do know a lot of people have a lot of different methods or may have other things that are not on this list. So after watching the video, if you have anything that you want to add to the video or anything you would do differently, make sure to definitely leave that in the comments section. And this is all right now on Nexus Auto. Now first, find a good area that you can actually store it. As you can see, for example, this is where I put my car. It's protected from the elements, no snow, no rain, no water gets in, and it's pretty well off. I mean, it does kind of lead out to the front area, but you can see it's quite long, so I don't have to worry about that at all. But the car is stored here. It's well protected from the elements. You want to find something like that is where you want to put your car. Whether it be in a garage, whether you're storing it in a storage area, or in a carport like this, you need a good place to put the car first and foremost before you even consider anything else. Next, you want to check all fluids, make sure everything is topped up. You know, that includes everything from checking your coolant, checking your engine oil, checking washer fluid, make sure that's kind of lined up and topped up. Brake fluid, power steering, which in this car is underneath there. Check all your fluids and make sure that they're all topped up and at optimal levels for the car. You also want to fill up your gas tank. Make sure that's all topped up. You don't want to leave a partial gas tank, even quarter tank or anything, because water can build up in the gas tank, which could lead to issues later on. So just make sure you have a full tank before you store the car. So you want to check your tire pressure. Make sure your tire pressure is exactly where it needs to be. You know, check your manufacturer's. Normally there's a sticker on the inside of the car, like I'll show you right over here. Like that. So check and see. Let's talk about the tires a little more, because that's a tricky one. That's a one that kind of teeters for some people. Some people actually prefer to take the tires off instead of checking your tire pressure. I mean, your tire pressure should always be good anyways, but some people prefer to take the tires off and have the car sitting on jack stands raised up. If that works for you, that's great. Now, I'm not too big a fan of that, because even with modern cars, I don't like the idea of the suspension hanging. If you have short winters, maybe okay. But for example, there's some times where we get cold weather coming in from November, and it goes all the way through until March or April. So that's like 5-6 months of cool weather, right? Where the car is going to be hanging. So half the year of suspension just hanging down. I'm not a fan of that. So, you know, if you have shorter winters, or if you're just parking for a short period of time, that may work. But otherwise, if you're going to be parking the car up, check your tire pressures, even actually go up a couple PSI higher. So if it's like 40 PSI, which is what those Z-rated tires are rated for, then I may go like to 42 or anything like that. And then when you park it, try not to park directly on the road, on the ground itself. For a couple of reasons. One, if it's concrete, that's great, but there's no give and the tire could flat spot. Most modern tires actually won't, to be honest, even parked 6 months, but it is possible, especially if you don't air it up properly. If it's asphalt, then the car sitting in the one spot for X amount of time could cause the asphalt to dip, and then you're going to ruin your driveway, right? As you saw earlier where I parked my car. So it wouldn't hurt if you're going to park it with the tires on. Make sure to put some sort of either some board there, like some wood, good piece of wood that could absorb some of the weight of the car and kind of buffer between the tire and the driveway itself. Or if you have some absorbent material, some good high strength absorbent material, things like that may work. So make sure you're putting something in between. Don't just park it on the driveway, because it could sink it, right? You don't want to do that either. Other than that, I mean, the other option is, of course, to start the car and move it every once in a while. But part of the why you're storing it is to prevent it from getting the weather. So you may want to look at that. Get a good quality car cover, as I unfortunately have kind of stored in my trunk right now. You want one that's got good material, that feels good, that's not going to scratch your car, your finish or anything like that. You know, put some good money into it, because there is ones you can buy for really cheap, but they're a little more plasticky, the material's a little rougher, and that could damage your paint, especially if the car cover moves ever so slightly or anything like that when it's on the car. So you want to get a good quality one. This one's here pretty good. It's nice and smooth. The material feels kind of silky, but it's also protective and waterproof, so you want something like that. Also, if just as a little kind of pro tip, once you do put it on your car, or even before, it wouldn't hurt to spray on some, for example, Scotch Guard or anything like that, some type of a sealer, just to make it a little more waterproof. I mean, hopefully you're storing the car where it should have no exposure to water or any type of the elements, but it certainly wouldn't hurt, right? So that's just something you want to do. Make sure you get a good quality car cover. Now, when your car cover is on, it's not going to be, if you get a good one that's fitted for the car, it's not going to go all the way down. You're going to have the gap from under the car here, right? So you do want to make sure especially depending where you live, you don't want animals and stuff getting in there, chewing at wires, chewing at lines, getting tucked into stuff, maybe even unfortunately dying in those areas and smelling up the car. So, you want to try and seal off these areas if you can, whether you have the car jacked up or on wheels. Something as simple as just taking a few blankets, and you don't have to stuff it all underneath the car, but just along the edges here to prevent anything from going in. I mean, some things that they really want to get in will get in, but whatever you can prevent will certainly help. Any type of damage to the car or any type of animals dying or anything like that. For your car battery, you want to hook up a battery maintainer or a trickle charger, or take the battery out entirely from the car. If it's sitting in there for a time and it's not maintained, it could die, it could expand out, kind of swells or anything like that. If you have aftermarket systems, alarms, anything, it could drain out. If you have audio systems, especially with capacitors, make sure you disconnect the capacitors as well, because they'll constantly drain the battery as well, even if the audio system's not in use. So either have a trickle charger hooked up or take the battery out entirely. Speaking of smells, you want to prevent that car from getting that musty smell inside. Can happen. So if you can, maybe leave the windows cracked ever so slightly, just to let the car breathe out and everything like that. Or another thing that does help is get a dessicant, which is, if you don't know what that is, the things when you buy a new pair of clothes or shoes and it's got those little tabs inside, not tabs, little packets with salt, and basically it's like salt inside, things like that. And it's like do not eat, very dangerous, things like that. Well, that's in there to prevent moisture from getting into the clothes or the shoes or anything. So even if you get some of those and put them around on the inside of the car, around here, up on the dash there, on the rear deck, on the back, everything, then you're kind of all set with that. That'll help kind of absorb some of the moisture out through the winter months. Whether you're leaving the wheels on the car or you're going to lift the car and support it on jack stands for the season, make sure to pull your wheels off, check your suspension, check your brakes. If you're really handy with brakes, take your brakes, the slider pins out and grease them up and everything like that. And a good little thing you can do is get a thin piece of paper and slide it in between the brake pad and the rotor. If they're sitting there for a long period of time and they're clamped on, you'll notice it. Like if you drive the car, if you've ever had it parked even for a few weeks, and you hear a thunk noise or anything, that's because they're kind of starting to bond. They're kind of seizing on together. So by greasing up the pins in the back and putting the piece of paper, that'll allow that when you're ready to go, just to make sure, of course, in the springtime, you're taking a little piece of paper out. But then you should be all set and you're not going to have any brake issues or anything come springtime. You want to give the car a good wash, get all the dirt off. You don't want to leave that dirt on there. That could etch the paint, even if it's not in the sun. If it's in a decently temperature controlled area, it can still etch the paint and damage it. At the same time, you want to give the car a good clean on the inside, a good vacuum. If the weather's still good, a good shampoo and everything as well wouldn't hurt. But don't do that when it's too cold, because then that could lead to that musty smell I was talking about earlier. So anything like that will certainly be beneficial to the car. Clean your rims, otherwise, again, they get stained and everything, and then they're very hard to clean in the spring. So just give the car a good in and out clean just before you're ready to store it. And last thing is take something like a saran wrap or anything like that and wrap your wipers around. Don't take the wipers off, simply because, for example, let's say in the springtime you forget you took the wipers off, you go in the car, accidentally hit the switch, and that arm goes up, so put a little etch into your glass. You don't want to do that. So leave the wipers on, but just wrap it, because you don't want the rubber sitting over time. It could just start wearing out just from sitting and not being used or anything like that, but just sitting on the glass. So by wrapping it, it does help a little bit as well in maintaining them. You don't want to have to spend money necessarily on new wipers, right? Thank you all very much for watching. I hope this video has helped you out here today. Now let's go through some of the YouTube stuff, shall we? Don't forget to like and subscribe if this video has helped you out. And if you want to see my future videos, I try and put out one at least once a week. Make sure to hit notifications as well, just so you can get those videos. On the flip side to that, if you didn't like the video for whatever reason and you do dislike it, not a problem. Feel free to leave in the comments of why you disliked it, whether it be something I did wrong, whether it's something you didn't like in the video. By all means, just let me know so I can keep making the best content possible. It's kind of the whole point of it, so make sure to do that. Speaking of the comments, if you have any questions, concerns, anything you want to add on, anything you see you can do better, anything that maybe you add on and it actually is worse, whatever it is, feel free to leave it in the comments. Nothing wrong with that. I always try and answer whenever I can. It may not be the same day, next day, whatever, but I try and answer all comments. So make sure to leave that as well. Once again, I want to thank you very, very much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.